All right. So you sent over a ton of stuff on Concord Biotech Limited financial reports, background on the company, even some industry outlooks.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But I think it'll be really interesting to break down, what makes this company tick.
Absolutely.
I mean, whether our listener is, prepping for some investor meeting or just wants to learn about this part of the pharmaceutical world, I think this will be good.
Yeah, especially if you're interested in specialized manufacturing. Concord's a big player in those fermentation-based APIs, the
APIs.
active ingredients in medicines.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But they're not just making any APIs. They're
Right.
focused on the complex molecules.
Okay. So not just like your everyday aspirin.
Exactly.
So before we get lost in all the molecules, maybe you can go back to the start. Concord's been around since '84, right?
Yeah, 1984.
So what's the story with their growth?
Well, their history actually shows, pretty consistent and sustainable growth. They built up from a small operation to now employing over 2,400 people worldwide. And it's not just about how big they are. They've kept a pretty impressive financial track record.
Now that's what I call playing the long game. But it's got to be a really competitive market.
Oh, for sure.
How have they managed to stand out, especially when we're talking about these, the special APIs?
Well, they've got this one product, one process thing they do.
Okay.
Basically, they dedicate a whole specific manufacturing process to each API.
Interesting.
And it might sound obvious, but it shows a real commitment to quality control, especially with these complex molecules that have to meet all the global standards.
And so it's like a tailor-made suit,
Yeah,
but for pharmaceuticals.
exactly.
And does that relate to all those DMFs they keep mentioning in the reports?
You got it. Drug Master File, a DMF, it's a really detailed document. They have to submit it to the FDA.
Okay.
It breaks down every single step of how they manufacture the drug substance.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
It's their way of proving they meet all the requirements.
Right.
Safety, quality for every single API they make.
So to build trust with all the other pharmaceutical companies around the world.
Exactly. It's crucial.
Makes sense. They're not just giving you the ingredients.
Right.
They're giving you the whole cookbook.
The whole recipe book.
All right, so let's talk about the industry as a whole.
Okay.
These reports seem pretty optimistic about the pharmaceutical market,
Yeah.
especially with, the global population aging.
Absolutely. The demand, for everything.
Yeah.
Especially those focused on chronic conditions and complex treatments, it's all going to keep rising.
Yeah.
And Concord focusing on those niche segments.
Immunosuppressants and oncology.
Right. They're in a good spot.
Okay.
But it's not without challenges, of course.
Right, of course. So let's talk about some of those challenges. What hurdles are they going to face in this constantly changing industry?
Well, the competition's fierce. You've got the huge companies and all the new startups. They all want market share. Staying ahead of the game means they have to innovate constantly and really understand what new therapeutic trends are coming up.
Makes sense.
Concord's R&D pipeline seems promising, though. They're focused on new products for those special segments.
So it sounds like a real race to the finish line, but Concord is ready to run.
They're lacing up their shoes.
Okay, so let's zoom in on their financials.
Okay.
The reports show some really healthy numbers
Yeah.
when it comes to, revenue growth and profit.
They've been very consistent with their profits
Yeah.
and growing that top line, especially in their core business, those fermentation-based APIs and the formulations.
Right.
Like just last fiscal year, their gross profit margin hit 42.8%.
Wow.
And their EBITDA, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, was strong. I think it was INR 434.9 crores.
Okay, so for someone who's not fluent in financial report, what does that actually mean?
Well, basically, it shows they're really good at turning sales into profit.
Okay.
And they manage their costs really well. It makes them look really financially sound.
Right.
And well-positioned for growth in the future.
Got it. So that's a good sign for anyone who's thinking about investing or partnering with them?
Definitely.
Now, they're not just manufacturing.
No.
They've got to have a big network to get all these products out into the world.
Their market presence is really something. They sell everywhere, in all the really regulated markets like the U.S. and Europe, but also in emerging markets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they work with a ton of different clients, over 165 trading houses.
Wow.
Which gives them a huge reach in that global pharmaceutical supply chain.
So they've really got, their finger on the pulse of the whole world then.
Yeah.
Both those established areas and the up-and-coming ones.
Uh-huh.
But hold on. With a network that big and that complicated, doesn't that open them up to a lot of risks?
That's a great point. No business is risk-free, and Concord's no different. Their reports point out several big ones.
Like what?
Ethical concerns, community stuff, even those data breaches and cybersecurity threats.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to handle,
It is.
especially in an industry like this. It sounds like they're not ignoring these problems, though, right?
Absolutely not. They're being pretty responsible about it, putting strategies in place to address all of them.
Okay, like what?
Well, they've got these strong ethical guidelines, data protection measures.
Uh-huh.
They're working on engaging with the local communities
Okay.
and prioritizing how their employees are treated.
So it's a balancing act.
It is.
Growing, but also dealing with all these potential problems.
Exactly.
It sounds like they're trying to cover all the bases.
They are.
But we should probably unpack those risks a bit more. I mean,
Yeah.
they could really change things for them down the line, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Understanding what those potential problems are is super important. Like, take ethical stuff. Any slip up there, even if it wasn't on purpose, could ruin their reputation.
Right.
People wouldn't trust them anymore. Partners, investors.
Yeah, high stakes,
Yeah,
especially with something like pharmaceuticals.
for sure.
But before we go too deep into all the bad stuff, the risky stuff, let's switch gears and look at something more positive.
Okay.
Their commitment to research and development,
Oh, yeah.
because that's where they're shaping their future.
R&D is key.
They're not just sitting back and being happy with what they've already done. They're investing in the future
Right.
to stay ahead of the game, to meet the new demands in the market. It's
Exactly.
like they're looking way ahead,
We're looking beyond the horizon.
trying to figure out what's coming next. But before we get into that future stuff with their R&D, maybe this is a good time to, take a breath.
Little pause.
Yeah, think about what we've talked about so far. What are your first impressions of this company?
It's interesting.
Yeah. Anything about their business or the industry that's really caught your attention?
Hmm.
Well, we'll be right back. We're going to dig deeper into Concord's R&D, their financial health, and how they're tackling those risks head on. Stay tuned.
Can't wait. So before the break, we were talking about Concord's R&D, the exciting part.
Right. All about innovation. What are they focusing on for the future?
Well, it all lines up with their niche therapeutic segments, really.
Makes sense.
Big investments in new complex molecules and formulations, especially in immunology and oncology.
Wow, those are like the most challenging areas in medicine, right? I mean, they're changing so fast. What makes them think they can compete there?
Their track record's pretty solid. I mean, they're good at making those complex APIs.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to spend money on R&D either.
Right.
Their reports show they spent, I think it was over INR 24 crores on capital expenditure for R&D just last year.
That's a lot.
Shows they're serious about the long term.
It's more than just spending money, though.
Right.
What's their approach to developing these new products?
Well, they're doing a lot of things.
Okay.
Building up their own expertise.
Right.
But they're also open to, partnerships and collaborations.
Sorry.
Tap into outside innovation that way
Yeah.
and speed things up a bit.
So it's a mix of internal stuff and being smart about who they work with.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But all this R&D spending, it's got to be balanced, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how are their financials looking?
Good point. R&D takes time, and it doesn't always pay off right away. But Concord, luckily, seems to be pretty stable.
Right.
Their debt's gone down a lot lately.
That's good.
And their cash flow from operations is positive.
So they can keep investing in R&D without, going broke.
Exactly.
But debt and cash flow, that's just one part of the picture, right?
Yeah.
What about their overall capital efficiency? How good are they at using their money to actually make money?
Another key indicator, and they're doing well there too. Things like return on equity, ROE. It's been growing consistently. Shows they're using their investments wisely.
So financially, they seem ready to handle those big R&D plans.
Yeah. They seem to be in a good spot.
But let's get back to those risks for a sec.
Right.
All that ethical stuff,
Mm-hmm.
community engagement, data security.
Yeah.
It's serious stuff. How are they actually dealing with all that?
They've got a plan.
Okay.
They've put a strict code of ethics in place.
Good.
And they've got ways for people to report any problems. They're also getting serious about community engagement.
Oh, like how?
Making sure their operations are sustainable,
Yeah.
that they're actually benefiting the people around them.
So it's not just talk, they're actually doing something about it.
They are
What about data security, though? I mean, that's a huge issue these days,
huge.
especially for a company like this with all their intellectual property.
They know it. It's in their reports. They've been putting money into cybersecurity,
Okay.
tightening up their data protection. They know that one breach could be a disaster.
Yeah, for their reputation, for their finances.
For everything.
It's like building a digital fortress, huh?
Exactly. But even with all that, there's always the unexpected, stuff you can't really plan for.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What about the stuff that's harder to predict, harder to control?
Well, there are some industry-specific risks. They're in the reports, too, like regulations changing.
Oh, right.
That can really mess things up.
How so?
Maybe they can't sell certain products anymore.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe they have to change their manufacturing processes, which costs money.
Yeah, those pharmaceutical regulations are always changing.
Always. It's hard to keep up.
What are the risks are they worried about?
Well, demand can shift.
Oh, right.
Or prices can change. It's a competitive market. New companies pop up.
Yeah.
Healthcare policies change.
Right.
All that can affect their profits.
So even with a good strategy and strong financials, they can't control everything.
That's right. But at least they seem aware of it, planning for the long term.
Like they're playing chess, thinking several moves ahead.
Exactly.
But even the best chess players get surprised sometimes. What do you think is the biggest risk for Concord? What should investors and partners be watching out for?
That's a tough one. I think the main thing is they're in a tough industry. It's always changing, always challenging.
Yeah.
They're doing a good job managing the risks they can see,
Right.
but the real test is how they adapt to the stuff they don't see coming.
Adaptability, being able to bounce back. That's what they need.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about Concord's strengths, their R&D plans, and the risks.
Yeah.
But to really get it, we need to look at the bigger picture.
The whole industry.
Right. What's happening in the pharmaceutical market overall? Is it going to help them, or are there problems ahead?
Well, that's what we'll talk about in the last part. We'll look at the global trends, where Concord fits in, and leave you with some things to think about. Stay tuned.
All right, so let's tie it all together. Concord Biotech and the whole pharmaceutical world.
Yeah.
You mentioned some potential problems earlier. What should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, the global market, it's a mixed bag.
Uh-huh.
Lots of opportunity, but also a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
On the one hand, like we said, the demand's there,
Right. New treatment.
especially for chronic diseases. And as the population ages, that'll just increase.
So, like you said, a rising tide.
Yeah.
But you said there were storm clouds, too.
Yeah.
What could, mess up all this growth?
Well, regulations are a big one.
Uh-huh.
They're always changing. Governments are trying to figure out healthcare costs, how to make sure people can get the medicine they need.
Right.
That can lead to stricter rules,
Yeah.
pricing pressures. It can even be harder to get your products into certain markets.
So Concord's going to have to be careful navigating all those regulations.
Yeah, it's a maze out there.
What else?
Competition, of course.
Right. Always a factor.
But in this industry, it's fierce. I mean, you've got the big guys, the huge companies.
Yeah. And then you've got all these new biotech companies popping up.
Trying to get a piece of the pie.
Everyone wants a piece.
So how does Concord stay ahead? I mean, they're focusing on those niche areas, but is that enough?
Their strategy seems pretty solid. First, they're really investing in R&D, new technologies, pushing the limits of what they can do with those APIs.
So they're building on what they're already good at. What else?
Partnerships. They're teaming up with other people.
Oh, okay.
Research institutions, other biotech companies, even some of their competitors.
Interesting. Why?
Well, it gives them access to more knowledge, more expertise.
Right.
Speeds up the process.
So they're building like a whole network of innovation,
That's a good way to put it.
combining what they know with fresh ideas from outside.
Exactly.
We've talked a lot about those complex APIs and their focus on, specific areas of medicine.
Right.
But is that going to be enough in the long run? What about all the new stuff coming out? Like personalized medicine.
That's a big one.
And it seems like Concord's thinking about it.
Okay.
Personalized medicine, that's where you tailor treatments to each individual patient.
Right, based on their genes and all that.
Exactly. It's a huge potential market.
Could change everything,
Yeah.
but it's a different ballgame, right? Different skills, different way of thinking. How would Concord even get into that?
Well, they could use their expertise with those complex APIs
Right.
to make custom treatments.
Like just for one person.
Potentially.
Uh,
Imagine making a batch of medicine just for you, based on your specific needs.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But is it even possible on a large scale? And wouldn't it be super expensive?
It's early days.
Yeah.
The path to profit with personalized medicine, it's not clear yet.
Right.
But Concord's not afraid to try new things.
Yeah, they're investing in R&D, forming those partnerships.
They're preparing for the future, even if they don't know exactly what it looks like.
So it's a balance of risk and, being able to adapt.
Exactly. They're not just riding the wave. They're trying to figure out where the next wave's coming from.
Okay, so before we wrap up, let's bring it back to our listener, someone who might be thinking about investing in Concord or maybe partnering with them. What are the key takeaways here?
I'd say their track record is important.
Right. They're good at what they do.
They're committed to innovation, to R&D,
Mm-hmm.
and they're strategic. They're thinking about growth, but also about the risks.
It sounds like they're doing a lot of things right.
Mm-hmm.
But, like with any investment, you got to do your homework.
Oh, wait.
Weigh the potential rewards against the risks.
This industry it's complicated. There are no guarantees. But Concord seems well-positioned to deal with the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities.
So we've covered a lot. Concord's history, their financials, their R&D, how they're handling the risks. It's a fascinating company.
And we've talked about the trends shaping the whole pharmaceutical market, the challenges, the new developments. It's an exciting time.
So as you think about Concord and its future, keep learning. Keep asking questions.
There's always more to discover. This industry is full of breakthroughs, new innovations all the time.
And Concord Biotech is definitely one to watch.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.